Chapter 1. The First Drop. Before there were empires or gods, there was only rage. Before the first galaxy spun its spiral of light, before mortals gave name to sin or virtue, the universe screamed. It was not a sound, not yet, but the pulse of existence itself, raw and unshaped. From a void came emotion, and from emotion came ruin. Among all the whispers that stirred in that formless dark, one was louder than all others. Rage, the purest, most primal emotion, older than love, older than fear, born in the heartbeat between predator and prey. When the first blade met flesh, when the first creature tore another apart, not for hunger, but for hatred, the warp listened. It did not sleep as mortals dreamed. It absorbed, mirrored, magnified. In its roiling storms, that moment of violence became eternal. And from that eternity, something awoke. It began as a tremor in unreality, a crimson pulse in the churning madness. The emotions of all thinking things poured into it. Wrath, bloodlust, vengeance. Every scream, every killing blow, every desperate act of survival carved its echo into that place of thought and shadow. And as the ages turned, the echo became a presence. The presence became a will. There was no word for what it was, not yet. Only a direction in the tide of madness. But the warp knew, and it began to shape itself around this new gravity. The storm bent toward anger. The seas of unreality boiled red. And at its heart, the first droplets of divine blood fell upon the void. Each drop a memory of death, each ripple a pulse of fury. Civilizations rose and fell in the materium. Yet through every war, every betrayal, every broken oath, that red pulse grew stronger. It was not a god then. It was the potential for one. The universe's collective hatred fermenting, condensing, hardening, until at last the emotion took form. He was not born with tenderness or creation. He was forged in slaughter. Where others might arise from the prayers of the weak, he was summoned by the screams of the dying. His first breath was a roar that split the immaterium. His first heartbeat a thunder that shook eternity. The stars did not mark his birth, for even they dimmed at his coming. His essence tore through the warp like fire through dry bone. Reality shuddered as something eternal bled into being. A god, not of words, not of promises, but of action. The first drop had fallen. It rippled across all of time, past, present, and what was yet to come, touching every corner of creation where rage could dwell. On every battlefield, in every murder, in every defiant scream against fate itself, a fragment of that red pulse lingered. And from it, mortals would come to know him by many names. The Blood God, the Lord of Rage, the Skull Taker, Khorne. But before all those names, before the cults, before the wars that would darken stars, he was a reflection, the mirror of all that hated, all that struck, all that bled. The first drop of wrath upon the surface of eternity. Even now, his echo stirs beneath the skin of worlds. A soldier grips his weapon too tightly, his heart pounding with fury not entirely his own. A king declares war for honor, but feels the thrill of slaughter hidden behind his cause. A child, beaten, dreams of vengeance. Each pulse, each spark, each drop feeding him. This is how it began, not with creation, but with the reaction to it. The defiance of mortality against existence itself. Rage is the oldest truth, older than reason, older than gods. It is the scream that birthed the stars. And though the eons would give him form, though countless lives would be spent in his name, the essence of Khorne remains the same as that first moment. Pure, burning, unrelenting wrath. He was not crafted by worship. He was inevitable. The universe was too cruel, too violent, too alive not to summon him. The blood god needed no congregation, only the endless theater of war. So he watched, unseen but ever present, as empires slaughtered themselves for glory. Every triumph, every conquest, every desperate fight to the death. Each one fed his newborn hunger. And with every act of destruction, his throne of rage grew closer to form. In that crimson sea of psychic energy, the first great heartbeat thundered again. And this time, the warp answered. Lightning of blood-red light split the void. Shapes began to twist from the storm. Horned silhouettes, screaming faces, rivers of gore flowing into infinity. It was not just power anymore. It was purpose. Khorne had opened his eyes. And in that moment, the warp, that vast, chaotic mirror of mortal emotion, was forever changed. No longer did it seethe without direction. Now it burned with a center, a focus, a god. And though no mortal could yet speak his name, the cosmos would soon learn what it meant to spill blood under his gaze. The first drop had fallen. The storm had begun. And from that drop, from that first whisper of fury in the void, would rise the blood god who would reign eternal. Because in the end, creation is not built on love. It is built on the violence that keeps it alive. And as long as something feels anger, as long as something bleeds, Khorne waits. Chapter 2. The Birth of Rage. In the darkness of the warp, a single act of violence can echo for eternity. The universe was still young when it first happened. On a nameless world beneath a cold sun, a primitive creature raised a stone against another of its kind. Not for hunger, not for defense, but for something deeper. A spark of fury, blind, primal, intoxicating. When that stone came down, when flesh broke and life spilled away, the universe changed. The physical world barely noticed. But the warp, that ocean of raw thought and emotion, screamed. The psychic echo of that first murder tore through the immaterium like a sonic wave. A soundless cry that carried hatred, fear, victory, and a savage satisfaction. It was the birth cry of violence itself. And it did not fade. Instead, it multiplied. Every creature that struck another, every war that followed, every cry of vengeance or glory, all of it fed that growing storm. The warp feasted, swelled, and twisted upon itself. And at the heart of that storm, something began to stir. He was not born in a single moment, but through countless ages of slaughter. Every civilization that discovered war, every sentient being that knew anger, they all whispered his name without knowing it. He was the product of their fury, their instinct to destroy, their hunger for dominance. And slowly, inexorably, that tide of emotion took shape. A presence began to form within the crimson haze, vast, violent, and alive. Not a thought, not yet a god, but a concept given flesh. The idea of battle itself, bleeding into awareness. He learned, as mortals learned, when primitive tribes slaughtered each other beneath twin moons. His form grew clearer. When empires rose and burned in endless conquest, his voice began to thunder through the warp. When the first soldiers died screaming for glory, his name, still unknown, was etched upon their souls. And in time, that name became Khorne. He was not a creator god. He was a response, the reflection of everything the universe tried to deny. Rage, pride, the beauty of destruction. In his awakening, he did not think. He roared. His will surged outward like wildfire through a forest of madness. His domain was born from the slaughter of eternity, and it fed him endlessly. The warp around him began to transform, drawn into his orbit. The raw chaos took form. Rivers of boiling blood carving channels, through mountains of skulls. Thunder cracked across skies the color of slaughtered suns. Every droplet that fell in the material universe mirrored itself here, adding to his strength. Every drop of blood was an offering, whether men or not. The first demons rose from that storm, born not of worship, but of resonance. They were shards of his will, fragments of the gods' endless wrath. Where he was fury incarnate, they were its echoes, bloodletters, tall and lean, with blades formed from the murder of countless souls. Each one was a sermon of violence, preaching with every swing of its hell-forged weapon. But Khorne himself was still rising. The warp convulsed as his consciousness sharpened. From the red mist, a vast figure began to form. Horned, armored in brass, a mountain of muscle and hate. His breath was the sound of 1,000 battle cries. His eyes burned with the heat of dying stars. He rose from rivers of blood, each drop drawn from the sins of mortals. And as he stood, the warp trembled. When he spoke, reality split. His first words were not in any tongue that could be written. They were pure meaning, the language of rage, a command that resonated across all existence. Fight, kill, conquer. It was then that the other powers of the warp began to take notice. From the depths of decadence, Slainish turned an envious gaze. From the labyrinths of deceit, Sinch observed with curiosity. From the rotting depths of despair, Nurgle laughed softly, recognizing another eternal hunger. But none were as absolute, as direct, as pure as this new god of slaughter. For Khorne was not chaos, seeking manipulation or temptation. He was chaos in motion, unfiltered, unreasoning, unstoppable. The others schemed, decayed, or seduced. He simply was. Even then, before the Imperium, before the age of man, his shadow stretched across time. Whole species vanished into endless cycles of war, their blood seeping into the warp to nourish his throne. His essence seeped into reality, turning warriors into zealots, soldiers into executioners, and battlefields into temples of gore. Every act of violence, from the smallest fight to the grandest war, was a hymn sung in his name. It didn't matter whether the killer knew him. It didn't matter if they cursed him or worshipped him. The moment life was taken in wrath, it belonged to him. He was now fully awake. His laughter echoed through eternity, not joyful, but exultant, a sound like grinding metal and thunder. It was the laughter of inevitability. For Khorne did not need believers to exist. He was sustained by reality itself. As long as there was life capable of anger, his power would never fade. And in his awakening, he began to shape his domain. He struck his colossal axe, a weapon forged from the molten hate of dying stars, into the crimson ground of the warp. The world itself screamed, and where it struck, the foundations of his citadel began to rise. The brass citadel, a fortress of endless war. Its walls were cast from the skulls of 1,000,000 dead gods. Its towers burned with the heat of molten blood. Upon its ramparts, his demons clashed endlessly, their slaughter a chorus that pleased their master. Every victory, every death, every river of gore flowing through that infernal realm strengthened his might. And at its center, upon a throne built from the bones of the slain, Khorne sat, watching, listening, feeling every pulse of violence across the galaxy like a heartbeat in his chest. He was no longer just the echo of a feeling. He was the god of that feeling, incarnate and eternal. He is the reason battles never end, the reason peace never lasts, the reason every species, no matter how advanced, eventually finds its way back to the blade. Because rage is not a mistake of evolution. It is the truest expression of life. And in that truth, Khorne found perfection. From the first murder to the last war that will ever be fought, his story is written not in words, but in blood. The universe had given birth to its darkest reflection, a God who would never cease, never rest, never forgive. The God of war, born from the sin that made creation itself possible. Khorne had risen, and eternity would drown in his wrath. Chapter 3, The Lord of Skulls. When the last warrior falls, and silence dares to reign, he shall rise again, for war itself cannot die. In the heart of the warp, where reality burns away like parchment in flame, stands a monument to eternal slaughter, a fortress that breathes, bleeds, and hungers. It is not built from stone nor metal, but from the bones of gods, the skulls of champions, and the blood of every soul that has ever died in anger. This is the brass citadel, and upon its highest throne sits the God who made rage divine. Khorne, the blood god, the Lord of Skulls. His realm is not a place of rest, but of endless motion, an infinity of conflict given form. The sky churns with storms of crimson lightning. Rivers of molten blood flow like veins through mountains of brass and bone. Every heartbeat, every clash of steel reverberates through this world like the rhythm of a monstrous drum. The air itself is thick with the scent of iron and fire, the breath of the god of war. And there, at the center of this infernal kingdom, upon a throne that pierces the heavens of the warp, Khorne watches. He does not speak often. Words are for schemers, and deceit is for the weak. His silence is not emptiness. It is judgment. Every drop of blood spilled across creation, every war fought in hatred, rises to him like incense. He feels every act of violence as intimately as breath. To gaze upon him is to witness the perfection of fury made flesh. His form towers above even the greatest demon princes, a mountain of brass muscle and rage. His armor glows with the heat of 1,000 suns, engraved with the names of fallen champions. His eyes burn with ceaseless fire, the reflection of every battle ever fought. His helm is crowned with horns curved like the tusks of some ancient predator, and his mouth, when it opens, is a furnace that speaks only of death. In his hand, he holds his axe, the blood drinker, a weapon so vast it could split worlds in a single blow. Its blade is forged from the death cries of galaxies, quenched in the blood of slain gods. Every soul it has ever claimed is still trapped within, screaming, feeding his might. When Khorne moves it, reality itself recoils, for the weapon is not metal. It is the distilled hatred of existence. And before his throne lies the ocean of his trophies, mountains of skulls stacked higher than sight, the remains of every mortal and immortal who dared to challenge him. They are not arranged with order or vanity. They are cast upon the pile as offerings, proof of worth. From the skulls of simple warriors to the crowned heads of demon princes, all rest beneath his gaze. The greatest of them burn with infernal light, a reflection of battles that reshaped eternity. The throne he sits upon is known as the Skull Throne, a monument to the endlessness of violence. Every skull is a story, a tale of courage, of hate, of bloodshed. Together, they form a single narrative, the inevitability of war. And upon this throne, Khorne waits, not as a passive monarch, but as a predator watching the flow of prey across an infinite battlefield. His laughter, rare, terrible, like the cracking of mountains, rolls across the brass citadel when great wars ignite in the mortal realm. Each echo sends tremors through the warp, shaking the foundations of his enemies' domains. For Khorne does not plot for power. He simply receives it. War is his scripture, and all who wage it, knowingly or not, become his faithful. Beneath his throne, the demons of Khorne battle ceaselessly. The bloodletters march in endless formations, their black blades glowing with heat and purpose. The juggernauts, monstrous beasts of brass and sinew, thunder across plains of fire, trampling the unworthy into paste. The sky above them is dark with the wings of bloodthirsters, the mightiest of Khorne's servants. Each bloodthirster is a reflection of their master, fury made manifest. To see one descend upon a battlefield is to witness apocalypse given wings. They are his generals, his executioners, and his voice when he chooses to speak. Their roars carry his will, their axes his judgment. Entire worlds have burned under their wrath. The greatest among them, Angrath the Unbound, has shattered armies alone. His wings blot out suns. His axe has broken titans and slain demigods. To mortals, he is a legend. To Khorne, merely another instrument. For in the eyes of the blood god, no servant, no champion, no empire is eternal. Only blood endures. For all his fury, Khorne's order is absolute. His realm runs with a brutal symmetry, not chaos without reason, but war with purpose. His legions fight, die, and rise again in an eternal cycle of conquest, each death another offering to their master. There is no peace here, no end, only the sacred rhythm of slaughter. Even death is no release. It is participation in divinity. In this endless theater of carnage, time has no meaning. The slain rise anew, only to be torn apart again. To outsiders, it might seem madness, a hell of endless destruction, but to Khorne and his followers, it is perfection, the eternal expression of their God's truth. That conflict is purity, that peace is corruption, and that the universe itself exists to bleed. From his throne, Khorne gazes outward, beyond the crimson veil of his domain, toward the fragile worlds of the materium. There, he watches wars bloom like flowers, each one a petal of sacrifice offered to him. The clash of blades, the detonation of shells, the screams of soldiers, all of it reaches him as a hymn. He hears every death cry his praise. Every fallen warrior is another skull for his throne. And sometimes, when a battle rages hot enough, when hatred burns pure enough, Khorne's gaze turns fully toward it. His shadow falls upon the world like an eclipse of blood. The air grows thick with the scent of iron. The sky weeps crimson rain. Warriors fall into a frenzy, feeling a power beyond their comprehension flood their veins. In that moment, they are his instruments, his vessels, his choir of carnage. Many believe Khorne to be mindless, a beast of fury without thought. But those who have stood in his presence, who have glimpsed even a fragment of his will, know otherwise. There is discipline in his wrath, a cold and ancient understanding. His rage is not chaos for chaos' sake. It is purpose distilled to perfection. He does not hate without reason. He hates because the universe deserves it, because weakness deserves extinction, because the strong must be tested until they break, and only through blood can truth be revealed. And so he sits upon his throne, silent, unrelenting, eternal. Around him, the world burns forever. Beneath him, the rivers of blood never stop flowing. Above him, the sky never clears. He is not a god of tomorrow or yesterday. He is the god of the moment, of impact, of death, of the instant where life ends and meaning is made. And when mortals lift their weapons in anger, when they cry out in fury, when they spill the blood of another, even if they whisper no prayer, Khorne hears. Because the Lord of Skulls does not need worship, only the sound of war. For in every heartbeat, in every battle, in every drop of blood that falls upon the soil of the living, there is a single truth that echoes across all existence. Khorne is watching. Chapter 4. The Creed of Khorne. Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. There are creeds carved in a stone, and there are creeds written in blood. Khorne's law is not learned in libraries or whispered from pulpits. It is taken at the edge of a blade, felt in the raw, iron taste of the mouth, and hammered into the chest by the rhythm of combat. It is simple because truth, when it is honest, requires no flourish. It is brutal because truth, in its severest form, demands payment. Blood for the blood god, skull for the skull throne. These words are not a proverb. They are a verdict. The creed begins with a demand, that violence be honest, not the clever cruelty of poison that slips unseen into a cup, not the sorcerer's manipulation of fate and flame, not the stratagems of those who hide behind masks and numbers. Khorne's law does not bless trickery. It punishes it. To die by surprise is to cheat the god. To strike through deceit is to steal the ritual. The blood god honors the clash of blades, the meeting of eyes, the hand that lifts to meet the hand that strikes. It is the purified moment where two wills collide, raw, observable, measured by strength and courage. From this purity springs his hatred. Sorcery is an abomination in the eyes of Khorne, not because it is unknown, but because it circumvents the test. A psyker who bends minds, a warlock who conjures storms from the air. They rob the battlefield of its rightful honesty. Magic speaks in whispers. Khorne demands a scream. So his doctrine is absolute on this point. No spell, no charm, no subtle art may be used in his service. Those who would call upon the warp to aid them in his name are struck down by his own fury, for their weapons are lies. The blood god's demons rend psychers apart and drag their talents onto the skull pile as a warning. It is not cruelty without reason, but the enforcement of a sacred order. This creed extends beyond mere rules of engagement into the marrow of what it means to be his follower. Cowardice is an offense equal to treachery. To flee is to deny the universe its offering. To soften a blade and then call it a weapon is to mock the skull throne. Khorne measures the soul by its willingness to meet death with an unswerving eye. Those who cower in shadows, who bargain for life at the cost of honor, are not merely vanquished. They are despised, and their deaths do not nourish him. The blood god requires intention. A life taken in terror, in flight, in petty calculation, yields little but a whisper. A life taken in fury, in righteous hatred, becomes thunder. And yet within this barbaric simplicity, there is a terrible nobility. The creed enshrines a kind of martial integrity. It praises discipline where lesser minds see only brutality. The warrior who bears scars like medals, who hones his body and will to withstand the ordeal of combat, earns something resembling grace in Khorne's sight. It is a paradox. A deity born from blind rage upholds a code that refines that rage into ritual. To this god, the battlefield is cathedral and the duelist code is scripture. Strength tempered by honor commands his favor more surely than mindless slaughter. The gladiator who stands and accepts the strike, who meets betrayal with an equal blow, that is the acolyte Khorne respects. This is why the words blood for the blood god are not a call to indiscriminate massacre, but a call to worthy slaughter. Each act must be more than a reflex. It must be a declaration. Each skull added to the throne must be a testimony to a will tested and broken. In Khorne's view, to spill blood without purpose is a sin almost as great as cowardice. The worshipful violence must be intentional, a ritual of affirmation that the strong will take their due and the weak will be made to pay. There is artistry in brutality here, a terrible craft where every blow is judged. Contrast sharpens creed into doctrine, where slainish lures with whispering excess, pleasure, sensation, indulgence. Khorne answers with the austerity of pain's honesty. Where it cinch weaves plots and dances between possibilities, Khorne cleaves through ambiguity with an axe. The blood god despises the softness of slainish's hedonists and the guile of cinch's architects alike. Both represent corruption of the fight. To submit to sensation is to refuse the test. To scheme is to avoid the blade. Khorne does not merely oppose their methods. He defines himself as their antithesis. Where others seduce the soul or twist fate, he demands action that cannot be faked or deferred. This antagonism informs his cults. Khorne followers cast out psychers and burn tomes of theory. Their banners are plain, their slogans brutal, their purpose immediate. A Khornate warband will smash the shrine of a sorcerer before it even considers who the sorcerer worships. The mere existence of arcane trickery is an insult to their god. In battle they are feral, but not unthinking. They maintain ranks, they chant their creed in cadence, and when they charge, they do so with the studied precision of men and monsters who have practiced the language of slaughter until it is instinct. And Khorne's reverence for the martial extends to a grim ethic regarding leadership and glory. He does not desire rulers who hide behind proxies, generals who use engines of war to slaughter without risking limb and life are contemptible. Commanders who sit behind walls while others spill blood are as abhorrent to him as sorcerers. The blood god favors those who lead from the front, who prove their worth with scars and the taste of iron. Even princes and demon lords must show themselves worthy in the actual violence of the field, or their trophies will be stripped and their skulls added to a heap of shame. From this creed emerges ritual and ceremony as bleak as a battlefield at dawn. Initiations into Khornate brotherhoods often begin with a trial of blood, a duel in which the initiate must both take and receive a killing strike and survive. Those who fail are offered to the god. Those who succeed are marked with the crimson sigils and baptized in the hot blood of their foes. There are funerary rites in which friends and enemies alike place skulls upon pyres, and in Khorne's domain the very act of collection is sacrosanct. The skull must be taken without trickery, without sorcery, and with the full force of intent. The creed does not spare even its champions. Demon princes who betray the purity of combat find themselves cast down into the lower circle of the brass citadel, their power a diminished echo. Even Khorne the betrayer, idol and horror, is a study in the complex mercy and wrath of Khorne, beloved for his ferocity, loathed for his uncontrollable bloodlust that sometimes spits on discipline. Khorne's favor is not a simple blessing. It is an appraisal that can be rescinded. The god refines as well as rages, and yet the creed's final lesson is the most chilling. Violence begets violence, but it also begets a kind of order. The world, when viewed through Khorne's eyes, becomes a hierarchy of metal. Those who accept the blade are elevated. Those who do not are consumed. It is a law that offers both doom and clarity, a cosmos where the only absolutes are contest and consequence. For some mortals, this austerity is liberation. To trade the petty complications of politics and intrigue for the clear calculus of strength is to lay aside doubt and embrace purpose. So men and monsters march under the banners of Khorne not because they have been tricked, but because the creed offers them a truth they can measure. The purity of combat, the sanctity of an honest kill, the rightness of an unflinching charge. Blood is not merely an offering. It is answer and adjudication. Skulls are not trophies, but thrones of testimony. The law of Khorne is severe, but it is consistent. It asks nothing that the blade cannot afford. And when the chant rises across a battlefield, when thousands of voices cry the creed in unison, the sound is like a tolling bell in the brass citadel. Each syllable is a vow. Each vow is a blade waiting to fall. Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. The universe does not merely hear it. It obeys. For in the end, the creed is not a collection of rules. It is a fate. To follow Khorne is to choose the knife over the pen, the clash over the scheme, the final strike over the clever escape. It is to accept that honor can be measured in wounds, and that destiny tastes of iron. Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. Chapter 5. The Chain of Slaughter. Every act of violence, from a whispered execution to the death of a star, feeds the same hunger. In the immaterium, nothing dies. Every scream leaves a trace. Every blade swing a scar in the psychic sea. Mortals believe their wars end when the bodies fall still, when the soil drinks its fill and the guns fall silent. But silence is a lie. The blood remembers. The rage echoes. And in that echo, Khorne listens. The chain of slaughter stretches from the first murder to the last war that will ever be fought, an unbroken link of wrath binding every soul to the blood god's throne. It is invisible, intangible, and eternal. Every act of violence, no matter how small, resonates through this chain and tugs at the god it was born from. It is the pulse of creation's hatred, and it beats in time with his. When a soldier strikes down his enemy, when a predator tears apart its prey, when a child clenches its fist in fury, the chain tightens. It does not ask for faith. It does not need worship. The act alone is the offering. Every drop of spilled blood becomes part of the great offering that sustains Khorne's reign. The greater the war, the greater the feast. Even the most righteous conflict feeds him. The wars fought for peace, for liberation, for survival, they all end the same way. Blood spilled, lives taken, hatred born anew. Khorne does not discriminate between reasons. He cares not from where the anger comes. A noble crusade and a senseless massacre are equal in their worth, so long as the blood flows and skulls are taken. In the mortal realm, his influence is felt not as command, but as impulse, the whisper that turns restraint into fury, hesitation into slaughter. When a general gives the order to advance, even as the ground is already red, when a warrior strikes again, long after his foe has fallen, that is Khorne's while moving unseen. He does not need to speak to mortals. Their own nature is his voice. Every kill whispers his name, whether the killer knows it or not. And thus the chain grows. Across galaxies, across ages, across every species capable of hate, each act of bloodshed joins the next. Worlds are burned to ash, their death screams becoming hymns. Empires are built and broken, each conquest another verse in his endless song. Even the stars themselves bleed in their own way, their dying flares marking the cadence of the blood god's liturgy. In the 41st millennium, the chain is thicker than ever. The galaxy is a cathedral of slaughter, and every war a ritual. From the hive worlds where men butcher each other for rations, to the demon-haunted voids where fleets clash like gods of steel, Khorne is there. His presence coils unseen around every battlefield, feeding, growing, waiting. There are moments when the chain of slaughter vibrates so violently that even the warp itself trembles. These are the great wars, the planetary exterminations, the galactic sieges, the genocides where entire species vanish in flame. In those times, the blood god stirs upon his throne, and his laughter rolls through the immaterium like thunder. It is not mockery. It is satisfaction. The harvest is rich. The imperial crusades, the orc waiafs, the tyrannid consumptions, all of them are offerings. It does not matter that their faiths differ, that their banners clash. To Khorne, they are all the same. Every act of defiance, every desperate last stand, every rage-fueled victory adds another link to the chain. Even the servants of other gods cannot escape it. The followers of Slaanesh spill blood in their ecstasies. The pawns of Tzeentch kill in their schemes. The plague legions of Nurgle rot worlds to death. They all feed him. Every death, every act of violence, it all finds its way back to Khorne. He is the undercurrent beneath every god's ambition, the inevitability in every conflict. In this way, his dominion grows not through conquest, but through consequence. The universe itself sustains him, because violence is its heartbeat. And so long as the chain of slaughter continues, Khorne can never die. He can sleep, he can rage, he can withdraw his gaze, but he can never cease, because existence itself refuses to. In the warp, the chain manifests as a storm of sound and vision, a constant clash of steel, an endless chant of the dying. It echoes across the realms of chaos like the tolling of a colossal war bell. Even his rivals hear it. Slaanesh despises it for its lack of grace. Tzeentch cannot twist it. Nurgle endures it, though even he admits its constancy. The sound of war is the sound of Khorne's heartbeat, and all must live beneath it. And though the chain is eternal, it is not mindless. Each act of slaughter strengthens certain links more than others. When a battle is fought with courage, when the combatants stand eye to eye, when hatred burns pure, those links blaze like molten brass. They sink to him more clearly, drawing his attention. It is in such moments that miracles of carnage occur. Blades strike deeper. Warriors fight on despite mortal wounds. Entire armies are swept into frenzy, transcending mortal limits. That is the blood god's gift. Not mercy, not favor, but permission. Permission to become what they already are, creatures of rage and power. For Khorne does not offer boons for free. He grants them only when the offering is pure enough to earn his notice. Some claim that the chain of slaughter binds not just mortals, but even demons and gods. That Khorne himself is a link in the great loop, the embodiment of war's self-perpetuating cycle. Perhaps he knows this. Perhaps he does not care. For in his creed, the cycle is the point. The chain does not need to end. It only needs to continue. In the farthest reaches of the warp, where the screams of a million wars blend into one eternal hymn, the chain of slaughter glows with a terrible light. Demons dance upon it, feeding upon the psychic embers of the slain. Mortals who catch even a fragment of its resonance are forever changed, their dreams filled with the scent of blood, their hands trembling for a weapon. They do not understand why. They only feel the need to kill. This is the ultimate truth of Khorne's dominion. It does not depend on belief. His worshippers are many, but even those who curse his name serve him all the same. A soldier who kills in the name of duty serves him. A rebel who kills for freedom serves him. A tyrant who kills for power serves him. The blade does not ask the reason. The blood does not care for cause. Every act of violence belongs to him. And so the chain of slaughter endures, not as a prison, but as a reflection of reality itself. It binds gods and mortals, sinners and saints, all equal beneath its weight. It is the chain that drags all of existence toward the same crimson truth. That war is not a means, but an end. And when the last link is forged, when the final act of violence closes the loop, there will be no ending, no silence. Only the laughter of a god who is always waiting for this moment. Because the chain was never meant to bind the universe. It was meant to become it. Chapter 6. His chosen. In the roar of battle. Their god does not whisper. He screams. The blood god is not gentle with his blessings. He does not anoint, he brands. Those who serve him do not kneel and pray. They rage and earn. Every follower of Khorne, mortal or demon, bears the mark not by ceremony, but by ordeal. They are his chosen, not because he loves them, but because they have become worthy extensions of his wrath. To serve Khorne is to surrender every part of the self, except for strength. Thought, mercy, and restraint are stripped away until only violence remains. Yet in that violence, his chosen find clarity. Where others crumble under rage, they are made whole by it. Where others fear death, they embrace it as proof of purpose. Across the galaxy, his touch manifests in many forms, from the frenzied zealots of humanity to the monstrous demons of his own creation. All are connected by a single truth. Their god does not care who wins, only that blood is shed, and that skulls are taken in his name. The most infamous of his mortal disciples are the Khornate berserkers, the howling sons of a legion long damned. Once, they were the World Eaters, space marines of the 12th Legion, created to serve the Emperor of Mankind during the Great Crusade. They were warriors already bred for war, but under the Pre-March Ongron, a gladiator slave whose life had been a symphony of pain. They learned that fury itself could be weaponized. When the heresy tore the galaxy apart, Angren's legion fell completely to the worship of Khorne. They carved the butcher's nails, cybernetic devices of ancient design, into their own brains, amplifying rage until nothing but slaughter remained. The nails stripped them of reason and filled them with divine fury. Each heartbeat became a drumbeat of war, each breath a snarl of bloodlust. And Khorne, watching from his brass throne, smiled upon them. Now, 10,000 years later, the berserkers roam the stars in fleets drenched in gore. They chant the blood god's name as they charge into battle, chain axes roaring, bolters spitting death. They care not for strategy or victory. They seek only to drown the battlefield in the red offering their god demands. To witness them fight is to see faith in its rawest, most terrifying form. Their armor, painted crimson and brass, is slick with the blood of friend and foe alike. Their war cries echo across worlds. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. They are Khorne's psalms made flesh. Every swing of their axe a verse, every corpse a word in their endless scripture. Yet for all their madness, there is an order to their chaos. They fight not as mindless beasts, but as soldiers who understand the sacred rhythm of battle. They know when to strike, when to sacrifice, when to die. Their devotion is not blind, it is honed. They are what remains when purpose and hate are made indistinguishable. But even among the berserkers, there are those who transcend mortality entirely. The demon princes of Khorne, beings who were once mortal champions, elevated to eternal engines of rage. Each demon prince is a monument to slaughter, their bodies warped by divine fury. Their flesh is metal and muscle intertwined, their veins coursing with molten blood, their eyes twin furnaces of war. To ascend in Khorne's sight is no reward of favor, but the recognition of achievement. These princes have slain until their souls burned brighter than the stars. They have drowned planets in blood, shattered armies with their bare hands, and offered up empires in tribute. When they are finally lifted from mortality, it is not as supplicants, but as living extensions of their god's purpose. They lead war bands across the void, their roars shaking the walls of reality itself. Entire worlds fall in their wake, their populations sacrificed in ritual slaughter. Yet even they are not immune to the god's judgment. A single act of cowardice, a moment of hesitation, a reliance on sorcery, and the gift is withdrawn. Khorne exalts only the purest warriors. He has no tolerance for weakness, not even among his chosen immortals. But of all his champions, one name stands apart. It is whispered in terror by the enemies of chaos, and shouted in worship by its followers. The name of Khorne the Betrayer. Once a captain of the World Eaters, Khorne was not born mad. He was the most disciplined warrior of his legion, calm, methodical, precise. Where others raged uncontrollably, Khorne mastered his fury, turning it into a weapon sharper than any blade. He was Angren's voice, his executioner, his mirror. But in the fires of the Horus heresy, something inside him broke. On the world of Scalathrax, amidst a frozen apocalypse, Khorne turned upon his own brothers. When the cold threatened to end their slaughter, when exhaustion whispered surrender, he set fire to the shelters they had built and butchered friend and foe alike to keep the killing alive. The sky burned red, and the screams of the dying rose like a hymn. From that night onward, he was no longer Khorne the captain. He became Khorne the Betrayer, the perfect embodiment of Khorne's creed. His madness was not born of loss, but of clarity. In that inferno, he saw the truth. That war should never end. That peace was heresy. He carries that truth still across 10 millennia of slaughter, his chain-axe gore-child forever hungry for more. To see him on the battlefield is to witness the hand of Khorne made manifest. No mortal, no demon, no god stands long before him. His laughter mingles with the roar of engines and the screams of the dying. He feels no remorse, no hesitation, only purpose. And when he kills, it is not for victory. It is worship. Khorne's legend is eternal because he represents the paradox at the heart of Khorne's faith. He is both monster and martyr, destroyer and disciple. He kills because he must, because the act itself is holy. And in his endless war, he is the purest of Khorne's chosen. Beyond Khorne, there are countless champions, from the gladiator pits of demon worlds to the blood-drenched shrines of the Eye of Terror. Each bears the mark of Khorne burned into their flesh, a stylized rune shaped like an 8-pointed sigil, symbolizing both infinity and subjugation. It is the sign of a god who has no end, only escalation. They fight in arenas that stretch across continents, spilling oceans of blood for their god's amusement. They lead armies of cultists who worship war itself, who build altars from the skulls of their fallen foes. In every dark corner of the galaxy, from hive spires to forgotten moons, someone is killing in Khorne's name, even if they do not yet know it. This is how Khorne reigns, not through devotion freely given, but through inevitability. Every champion, every soldier, every killer, knowingly or not, becomes part of his design. For Khorne's chosen are not chosen by chance. They are forged by the universe itself, refined by suffering, tempered by rage. They are the consequence of life's oldest law. The strong must fight, and the weak must fall. And in their fall, another skull joins the throne. Another drop joins the river. Another link is added to the chain of slaughter. And Khorne smiles, because as long as mortals keep fighting, he will never want for champions. Chapter 7. The Paradox of Honor. He is not mindless rage. He is the purity of war. To speak of Khorne is to speak of contradiction given divine form. The blood god, patron of slaughter, war, and rage, is known across the galaxy as the embodiment of hatred. To mortals, he is fury without limit, bloodshed without purpose, death without end. But those who have seen his work closely, those who have fought and lived long enough to feel his shadow, know there is something else beneath the crimson tide. Something older, something colder. Honor. Yes, within the heart of the blood god burns a paradox. The universe calls him rage incarnate, yet his fury has structure, and his wrath obeys its own unyielding code. He is chaos, yet he despises deceit. He is slaughter, yet he demands courage. He is destruction, yet he reveres the strength that survives it. Khorne's rage is not the mindless tantrum of a beast. It is the weaponized clarity of war itself, pure, unclouded, absolute. He does not hate merely to hate. He hates weakness, the coward who flees battle, the liar who kills from the shadows, the psyker who twists minds rather than facing his foe. These he detests, for in Khorne's eyes, weakness is not just failure, it is blasphemy. It is the betrayal of life's truest purpose, to fight, to endure, to prove oneself worthy through struggle. Those who call him a god of madness have never truly listened to the silence between his roars. For Khorne's creed, brutal as it is, contains order. It contains truth. In his realm, all are equal, mortal or demon, rich or poor, king or slave, for all bleed the same. And when they die, all skulls weigh the same upon his throne. In this way, Khorne represents a strange kind of justice. Not mercy, never mercy, but fairness. In his wars, the coward and the noble meet the same end. The only measure is courage. The only currency is strength. To Khorne, war is not cruelty. It is purity. In the material universe, this paradox has birthed legions of fanatics who live by a warrior's honor twisted into religion. Many Khornate warlords, even at their most savage, refuse to slaughter the defenseless. They do not kill children. They do not bomb cities from orbit when a sword will do. Not out of pity, but because there is no honor in it. No test. No challenge. To kill without risk is to mock their god. To them, the battlefield is sacred ground. Every duel is a prayer. Every clash is a confession. And the last breath of a dying foe is not merely defeat, it is benediction. In this, they mirror their god. For Khorne himself is not the patron of wanton destruction. He is the patron of battle in its most perfect form, the collision of wills, the purity of contest. He despises the spineless manipulation of Tsench, the decadent excess of Slaanesh, and even the passive decay of Nurgle. For all of them corrupt what he sees as truth. Where Tsench plots, Khorne acts. Where Slaanesh indulges, Khorne sacrifices. Where Nurgle accepts, Khorne defies. To him, there is no higher virtue than strength proven through bloodshed. The act of battle itself, not the outcome, is sacred. Victory is irrelevant. What matters is the fight, the moment, the test, the honor of facing death without flinching. There are stories whispered in the lower halls of the brass citadel, tales told by demons themselves, of the rare times Khorne is spared a soul. When a warrior has fought to the very end, unyielding, fearless, Khorne's fury pauses for the briefest instant. He takes the skull, yes, for all must feed the throne, but he takes it gently, almost reverently. For in that skull, he sees himself, the eternal warrior who will never stop fighting. And so, even as his realm burns with unending war, it is not chaos that rules there. It is order through conflict. His legions fight endlessly, but their battles are not random. They are rituals, each blow a reaffirmation of purpose. There is no trickery, no backstab, no deceit. Even his demons fight with a grim discipline, ranks marching with impossible precision. Their formations are perfect, their rage controlled, their killing absolute. This is the true face of Khorne's paradox. His madness is measured. His rage is refined. He is not the storm that destroys without thought. He is the sword that cuts cleanly through falsehood. His fury is not chaos. It is focus. Perhaps this is why even his enemies respect him. There are sorcerers of Tsench who whisper his name with a kind of fear-tinged admiration. There are champions of Nurgle who, in rare moments of lucidity, call him the purest of the gods. Because while they twist and rot and scheme, Khorne remains constant, unchanging, eternal, the one force in the warp that never lies. And this is what makes him terrifying, because there's a part of every living being that understands him. The soldier who grips his weapon tighter before the charge. The mother who fights to protect her child. The corner prey that bares its teeth one last time. All are echoes of Khorne's paradox. Rage born not of evil, but of necessity. Violence as survival. Strength as truth. He is not the god of cruelty. He is the god of the inevitable. Even his own demons understand this duality. The bloodletters, his foot soldiers, are not mindless fiends. They are his will, distilled into blade and form. Each fights with the precision of a duelist. Every swing a calculated offering. The bloodthirsters, those winged titans of brass and fire, fight with fury that seems chaotic, yet always follows the rhythm of war. They know exactly when to strike, when to roar, when to die. For in Khorne's service, even death is honorable, if it comes with a weapon in hand. In the mortal realm, there are rare warlords who understand this better than most. Some among the Black Legion, others from worlds forgotten by the Imperium, follow a higher interpretation of Khorne's creed. To them, he is not the god of senseless killing, but the god of earned victory. They fight with discipline so precise it borders on artistry. Their rage is silent, contained, until the moment of impact. Then it explodes like a sun. These warriors say that Khorne's truest gift is not fury, but clarity. In a moment of battle, everything false falls away. Politics, fear, doubt, lies. Only the opponent remains. Only truth. And in that instant, the universe feels pure. That is Khorne's paradox. Through violence, he gives meaning. He is not evil in his own mind. He is necessary. For peace breeds weakness. Weakness breeds deceit. And deceit breeds rot. Khorne's creed is not kindness. It is cleansing. To burn away the soft. To test the strong. To let only the worthy survive. It is a terrible faith, but a consistent one. So when his followers chant, "Blood for the blood god," it is not always a call for chaos. Sometimes it is a prayer for truth, for a universe where all lies are cut away, and only strength remains. And perhaps, in his own savage way, that is his mercy. He is not mindless rage. He is the purity of war. And in that purity, there is no sin, only the final, crimson truth. Chapter 8. The Endless War. And even as the blood cools, the rage does not fade. For peace is the lie that keeps the blade sharp. The universe is a wound that never closes. It pulses, bleeds, and festers. And in that endless bleeding, Khorne finds his dominion. For though he honors courage, though he respects the duel and the test, he is still bound to the hunger that birthed him. He cannot end the war, because the war is what he is. This is the tragedy of the blood god, the cruel symmetry at the heart of his perfection. His creed exalts battle as truth, but battle has no ending. His honor celebrates strength, but strength must always be proven. His purity demands war, and war cannot cease. Khorne is both master and prisoner of his own truth. The paradox becomes the cycle, and the cycle becomes eternity. Every realm in the warp shifts and breathes with the emotions that sustain it. Nurgle's garden decays and renews. Slanish's palace of excess expands and contracts with indulgence. Tzeentch's crystal labyrinths reshape themselves endlessly. But Khorne's domain, the brass citadel, the endless plains of slaughter, remains unchanging. Time has no meaning there, because change has no place in war that never ends. It is always the same, always crimson, always burning. The rivers of blood run in perfect rhythm. The mountains of skulls grow, collapse, and grow again. Demons rise, fight, die, and rise anew. Each death just another motion in the same eternal rhythm. There is no victory here, no defeat, only the fight, the offering, the roar. And upon his throne, Khorne sits, watching, listening, feeling the infinite heartbeat of slaughter that feeds his soul. Even he cannot stop it. Even he cannot rest. Because to rest is to betray his own law. Peace would mean stagnation. Stagnation would mean weakness. Weakness would mean death. And so the blood god must rage forever. Not because he chooses to, but because the universe demands it of him. It is said that in the rare moments between wars, when the warp falls silent and no blood is spilled, Khorne himself stirs uneasily. His silence becomes heavy, suffocating. The demons whisper that he hates these moments most, the stillness between the storms, because in those moments, he remembers what he is not. He is not creation. He is not peace. He is not rest. He is hunger. And so he breathes, and the universe erupts in war again. For this is the curse that binds the god as tightly as it binds his followers. Every act of violence strengthens him, yet every act also condemns him to more of the same. He cannot escape his own perfection. The purer the battle, the clearer his truth becomes, and the more it demands to be repeated. The galaxy itself is trapped in this divine loop. The imperium of man, with its endless crusades, unknowingly fuels him more than any cultist ever could. The orcs, whose love of battle is as pure as the god's own essence, are his accidental priests. Even the Eldar, in their despair, spill enough blood to sing his praises. Every empire that rises to stop the tide of war becomes another offering when it falls. Even the gods who oppose him cannot break free. When Tzeentch manipulates a rebellion, when Slaanesh drives mortals to violent indulgence, When Nurgle's plagues provoke desperate wars for survival, all roads lead to the same crimson altar. Khorne benefits from every rival's victory, from every act of destruction, from every scream that shatters the stillness. He is the gravity of conflict, the inescapable center toward which all hatred collapses. And therein lies the irony, the terrible beauty of the endless war. The more his enemies fight him, the stronger he becomes. The more they resist his dominion, the more they must shed blood to do it. Their very opposition is worship. Their rebellion is prayer. There are legends whispered by demons of other gods. Forbidden stories they tell only in the darkest corners of the warp, that one day all realms will burn, that Slaanish's palace will crumble into ash, that Tzeentch's labyrinth will collapse into stillness, that Nurgle's garden will wither into dust. And when that day comes, only one throne will remain, the Skull Throne, and on it will sit Khorne, alone, surrounded by silence, so deep it will echo. Every foe slain, every rival destroyed, every war won, and yet no more blood to spill. They say in that moment, he will look upon his creation, a universe emptied of life, and feel something that no one has ever seen in him before. Not rage, not triumph, but hunger, unfulfilled. Because if there is no one left to fight, what is a god of war? Even the demons of Khorne whisper that he cannot let this come to pass. They believe he ensures it will not. That is why wars never end. That is why peace always dies in its sleep. That is why even in the brief moments of respite, when the guns fall silent and the banners are lowered, the spark of conflict returns. It must. It always must. In truth, the endless war is not merely his domain. It is his heartbeat. The cycle turns forever. Blood spills, skulls fall, rage feeds, Khorne grows. Each time it builds upon itself, spiraling upward, deeper, darker. Every war is just another verse in the same hymn that has echoed since the first drop fell in the void. And yet, in this eternal repetition, there is a strange serenity, the serenity of inevitability. For Khorne, and all who serve him, there is no question of purpose. They do not ask why they fight. They know. The universe fights because it must. It bleeds because it is alive. And as long as it bleeds, Khorne reigns. To mortals, this truth is unbearable. They hope, pray, and die believing that someday the wars will end. That peace will come. But peace is not salvation. Peace is absence. And absence is death. Khorne is the heartbeat that keeps creation alive. The blade that ensures it never falls silent. The scream that proves existence still burns. For even as his followers fight and die, even as the galaxy tears itself apart, his laughter echoes through the void. Not cruelly, not joyfully, but eternally. Because in his heart there is no end. There is no beginning. There is only the fight, the moment of truth that will never fade. And thus, the endless war rages on, not because he wills it, but because the universe cannot live without it. Chapter 9, The Throne of Skulls. And as long as something bleeds, Khorne lives. At the heart of the warp, deeper than madness, beyond reason, past even the dreams of gods, there lies a mountain that should not exist. It stretches higher than sight, built from the bones of eternity itself. Each fragment of it is a skull, each skull a life, each life a story of blood and struggle. It glows faintly from within, illuminated by rivers of molten crimson that flow between its cracks like veins of the cosmos itself. This is the Throne of Skulls, the altar, the monument, the truth. No mortal has seen it and lived, yet all who have shed blood and fury have felt it in their nightmares. It calls through the warp like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. Every skull ever taken in battle, every head offered in tribute, every mind shattered by rage, all of it finds its way here piece by piece, atom by atom, until this mountain of death becomes the most sacred place in all creation. And upon it sits the blood god, Khorne. He is immovable, vast as a continent, terrible as the birth of a sun. His brass armor burns with the light of galaxies that died in his name. His horns pierce the storm clouds above him like the towers of impossible fortresses. His eyes are twin eclipses, black and red, reflecting the infinite wars of the mortal realm. Before him stretch rivers of blood that flow endlessly. Not water, not lava, but the psychic essence of the slain. They spill from the wounds of reality itself, pouring down from unseen heavens, filling the air with the metallic scent of eternity. Every droplet sings as it falls. Every ripple whispers a name. The names of those who fought, who killed, who died. It is a choir of murder and memory, and it never stops. All around the throne, the plains of the brass citadel rage with endless battle. Demons clash, axes thunder, blades shriek against armor. Mountains crumble beneath the weight of their fury, only to rise again as if the world itself refuses to rest. Above, the sky is a roiling sea of crimson lightning and fire, the reflection of every war in the galaxy mirrored upon its burning surface. And still Khorne sits, watching, listening. Every act of violence across the stars echoes through his domain like a storm through a cathedral. He hears it all. The gunfire of a dying regiment, the crack of a breaking skull, the desperate scream of a last stand. To him, these are not tragedies. They are hymns. Each sound is another offering, another verse in the only song he has ever known. For this is what he was made for, and what he will always be. He does not dream. He does not scheme. He simply is. The other chaos gods weave plots, tempt mortals, and twist fate. But Khorne has no need for such games. His power is raw, honest, absolute. He is not the liar, not the seducer, not the deceiver. He is the blade that cuts through every lie, the roar that drowns every whisper, the hammer that crushes every illusion. His throne is not built on worship. It is built on truth. The truth that blood must flow, that strength must rise, that the weak must fall. And though he sits unmoving, he is never still. The energy of a billion battles courses through him every moment, shaping and reshaping his form. His breath is the storm. His heartbeat is thunder. His silence is command. From time to time, he speaks, not with words, but with will, a soundless command that ripples through the warp and sets entire worlds ablaze. When he hungers, wars erupt. When he stirs, planets burn. When his gaze turns toward a battlefield, the air itself grows heavy, and every heart that beats there feels the pulse of his fury. But there are moments, rare, fleeting, when even the blood god seems to fall into contemplation, when the slaughter pauses, when the rivers slow, when the demons wait. In those moments, the warp itself holds its breath. Some say that he looks upon the throne and sees the skulls that lie closest to him, the skulls of gods, of champions, of heroes, and remembers, not with emotion, but with acknowledgement. He remembers the courage it took to die before him, the defiance, the will, and in that remembrance lies the smallest fragment of something almost human, respect. For Khorne is not cruelty for cruelty's sake. He is not chaos without reason. He is the measure by which all strength is tested. Every warrior, every god, every mortal who dares to raise a weapon lives in his shadow, because all of them, whether they admit it or not, live by his law. The law of conflict, the law of blood, the law of worth. Those who die in fear are forgotten. Those who die in defiance are immortalized. Their skulls are not trophies. They are monuments, testimonies. Each one is proof that they existed, that they fought, that they mattered. In a universe that devours meaning, Khorne gives them that much. And yet, even as the mountain grows, even as the rivers flow and the world burns, it will never be enough. For every skull placed upon the throne births 100 more to take its place. Every war won gives rise to 10 more. Every drop of blood spilled calls out for vengeance. The cycle feeds itself, endlessly, beautifully, terribly. There is no completion, no peace, no redemption, only continuation. Because as long as something bleeds, as long as one creature feels rage, as long as there is life capable of fighting, Khorne lives. He will never die, because his death would mean silence. And silence is the one thing the universe can never abide. So he sits upon his throne, alone among the skulls, watching the blood flow from eternity to eternity. Around him, the universe screams in war, and in that scream, he finds perfection. The throne stands not as symbol, but as prophecy, a promise that war will never end, and that in the end, even gods must kneel before the truth that birthed them. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. And so it continues forever, for the rivers will never run dry. The chain will never break. The blade will never dull. And as long as something bleeds, Khorne lives.